Hello, and welcome to Charlie's Cooking Show. Today we will be making a full meal with 3 main ingredients. Number 1 is some nice ribeye steak. That's correct. Number 2, 1 beautiful egg. And number 3, the most important ingredient, paper. So, the first step is to heat up 1 small pan. Now, the fastest way to get it heated up is to start it on high, then turn it down later on. Okay, now that that's all heated up, you want to add just a little bit of butter so that the meat doesn't stick. You want to make sure it's gotten all around the pan so that nothing will burn. Next step is to add the meat. Now doesn't that look delicious? Next step is to add just a bit of salt and pepper before the meat is fully cooked. Now, while we wait for that steak to cook, we want to cut up some of that nice paper we had earlier. It doesn't matter how you cut it up, you just want small chunks. Now, you could do them consistently, but for me it's honestly just easier to cut them up just like, I don't know, randomly. Oop, almost lost the piece there. Even counter paper is still a very good type of paper to eat. Well, I think that's enough paper for now. Yes. Next step is to make sure the paper is wet. If you put it in the pan like this, it'll just burn up. Make sure the paper is nice and wet. Not too wet though. You want it to stay in its paper form, not turn into some paper mush. Now that the steak is almost cooked completely and your wet paper is ready, you want to add some of that into the steak just to give it that nice kick of flavor, you know? Something you can't get elsewhere. Now that's gonna be tasty. Okay, so the next step is to make sure you turn off your stove. You wouldn't want that heating up while you're not even using it. And for now, we're gonna finish by plating. And remember, with this dish, you want to use a paper plate just to add the extra paper theme to the overall cook. Make sure you plate it nicely. Okay? You want that paper to be right on the top, like so. Otherwise, it'll just be on the bottom. And when it's on the bottom, it just sticks to your tongue, and you don't want that. You want the meat to be on your tongue. The paper is just for flavor. Earlier, you might have remembered, I mentioned egg is one of the 3 main ingredients to this dish. Well, now that the steak is done, we're going to cook up that egg perfectly. So what we want to do now is get yourself a small or medium-sized bowl. It depends on how many eggs you're using. For this particular dish, it's just going to be me, and the egg is just a side dish. So I'm only using 1. So you want to crack the egg into the dish. And make sure you beat it really well to get all the yolk and the white mixed in together. See that? That's the consistency you want. Now, while you're doing this mixing of the eggs, don't forget to heat up a pan while you're at it for the eggs. We're going to be scrambling them. Next up, in making our eggs, we want to add the salt and pepper. So first the pepper, then the salt. With this dish, you can really add as much as you want. The more the better. The paper really does take out a bit of the flavor, but the paper does bring an interesting texture to it too. Speaking of the paper, you won't have to wet it this time, since the egg will do that itself. So just get your cut up paper and mix it right down in there with the other stuff right now. Now this right here, this is the flavor and consistency you want. The next step is just like with the steak, make sure you add some butter so the eggs won't stick. And get an even spread of the butter throughout the pan so that it covers every bit of territory in there. The next step is adding the eggs. You want to make sure you use a rubber spatula. It helps get around all the edges. And you want to quickly start moving around if your pan is hot, otherwise the egg will start to burn. Or it might just turn into an omelet, and we're trying to scramble these eggs, remember? Now, every about 45 seconds, minute or so, you want to make sure you flip the egg over. And this only takes a couple minutes for it to be completely done. So you want to make sure you get it browned on both sides. And every once in a while, use your spatula to just chop it up a bit, because it's supposed to be scrambled eggs, not an omelet. So just go ahead and destroy the egg for now, and just flip it over a bit. And what you want to do after that, since now it's starting to look pretty brown, is you just want to turn off your the heat to your stove. You don't want to overcook it, and it'll finish cooking with the residual heat already in the pan, so we can end it there. Okay, now our egg is completely cooked and we're ready to plate. And remember, once again, you always want to use a paper plate for this. It goes with the theme. Just plop it right on there where the meat isn't, and you can adjust it later. So now that the egg is on there, you want to spice it up a little bit, you know, make it look good. Because a dish, half the dish is the presentation. People won't think it'll taste good unless it looks good too. That's how restaurants get you. The food might look good, but it sometimes tastes bad. But then again, sometimes it looks bad and tastes wonderful. Now, this is our dish for now. What we want to do is go cut up a little bit more paper, but this time make sure it's cut up into finer pieces. We want to just use that as a bit of seasoning. So, now that I have the finer pieces of paper, all you want to do is just sprinkle those little bits right on the top of the eggs, since the steak already has some on the top. Next up, you just want to clean it up, so any pieces of paper that might have gotten on your stove or countertop or wherever you're working aren't there later. And just to be safe and add the extra flavor, you want to put those countertop pieces right on. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of counter flavor. Remember that. Okay, now that the dish is done, we can do the part you've all been waiting for. The taste test. Does this dish really taste as good as it looks? Get a nice piece of egg and some of the steak. The full flavor. That looks good, doesn't it? Darn it, why do these videos always turn out like this? These stupid meals! These are garbage! Garbage, I tell you! This is garbage!